When the strange event occurred, no one saw it coming. For centuries, humanity had been living in relative peace, exploring the stars, advancing their technology, and steadily improving life on Earth. Despite their rapid growth, they were still perceived by the universe's more advanced civilizations as a species in need of guidance, a young race struggling with their place in a vast and complex galaxy. Then, without warning, everything changed. It began with a signal, an unknown transmission that appeared out of nowhere. No one could trace its origin. No one could understand its message. At first, it was dismissed as a fluke, a cosmic anomaly, or perhaps some form of alien communication meant for other species. However, the signal grew in intensity, and soon its presence was undeniable. It was a coded transmission, a message, not in language but in pure energy, a burst of electromagnetic waves pulsing with the cadence of something alive. A message directed at humanity, specifically at Earth. The response to the signal was immediate. Humanity's best minds, scientists, linguists, and engineers gathered to decipher the message, but no one could truly comprehend its meaning. They struggled with the decoding until the moment came when the signal finally made sense. It wasn't just an alien communication. It was a key, an unlocking mechanism designed to tap into humanity's latent potential. The effect was instantaneous and profound. People began to change, their minds opening to new possibilities, unlocking abilities far beyond what any human had ever imagined. But as quickly as the knowledge flooded their consciousness, so did chaos. The sudden surge in human cognitive power triggered a volatile psychological transformation. Thoughts, once orderly, fragmented. Ambition grew unchecked, and individuals who were once calm and calculated now exhibited wild, unpredictable behavior. Leaders who had been firm in their resolve became erratic, consumed with unrestrained desire for control. Scientists, once measured in their experiments, now delved into dangerous and forbidden technologies. Ordinary people, too, were affected, some gaining unfathomable intellectual powers, others descending into madness. And then came the alien delegate, a representative of an ancient galactic council, a species whose existence was rooted in millennia of cosmic order, arrived to observe the aftermath of the event. They had monitored humanity's development from afar, considering the humans a curious yet insignificant species. But now, they saw a very different picture. The delegate came not to offer help, but to assess the threat. They could feel the growing instability of the humans and recognize the danger they posed. These were not just any sentients. These were beings with immense, uncontrolled potential. The delegate stood before the United Nations, attempting to make sense of the bizarre transformations taking place. Humans, once considered naive and fragile, had unlocked a power that even the most seasoned galactic races had never fully understood. The aliens' assessment was bleak. Your species, though young, is now a force of unpredictable magnitude. If you remain unchecked, it may be the end of not just Earth, but of the delicate balance across the cosmos. You have no idea what you've awakened. At first, the humans did not believe it. To them, the delegate seemed as though they were speaking from a place of arrogance, from the position of an elder race that feared the unknown potential of younger species. The idea of being controlled, of their autonomy being questioned, stirred something deep in the collective human psyche. They were not going to let some alien entity dictate their future. But the delegate's warning wasn't about their ability to conquer or dominate. No, it was about the unraveling of the very fabric of reason. Humanity, in their pursuit of higher knowledge, was beginning to fall apart at the seams. The madness was not merely an emotional or psychological breakdown. It was a profound destabilization of human nature itself. The alien delegate, upon realizing that diplomacy would fail, turned to their own people. A decision had to be made. If humanity was allowed to continue unchecked, the ripple effect could spread to the stars, threatening entire civilizations. Yet, there was also a glimmer of hope. In their madness, humans exhibited something that many other species lacked: a raw, untapped potential for growth. Could they be contained or even guided before they fell into destruction? The next steps were uncertain. The alien delegation had arrived not as invaders, but as reluctant observers, unsure whether they could save humanity from itself or if the species was already doomed. Would the humans resist their help, or would they take their first steps toward becoming something far greater than the galaxy was prepared for? The clock was ticking, and the alien delegate's role, as they saw it, was simple: monitor, assess, and above all, be ready to intervene before humanity's madness became the galaxy's undoing, and as humanity's transformation deepened, the true nature of the madness became clearer. The alien delegate watched helpless as the chaos spread. The surge in human potential had turned into a wild torrent, flooding minds with uncontrollable power. What was once a quest for knowledge now seemed more like a descent into an unpredictable abyss. The delegate, whose people had long mastered the art of cosmic diplomacy, found themselves caught in a position they had never imagined. Attempting to reason with a species on the brink of destruction, yet too powerful to be easily subdued. At first, the humans tried to understand their new abilities. Some began to manipulate the physical world around them. Telekinesis, control over elements, and even limited control over time itself became within the grasp of the most gifted. But not all were blessed with such calm, cerebral power. Some became unhinged, their minds warping under the weight of the newfound knowledge. Their desires, once contained within societal norms, now turned to madness. Those who were once kind and empathetic now became vengeful and cruel, using their powers to impose their will on others. The first casualties of this transformation were the leaders. The United Nations, the symbol of global unity, quickly fractured as political leaders turned on one another. The power of speech was no longer enough. Those in positions of influence now used their new abilities to bend others to their will. Military leaders became dictators, and in some cases, even small local leaders began to assemble armies. What had once been a planet striving for peace now teetered on the edge of totalitarianism. Wars broke out between nations, fueled not by ideological differences, but by sheer ego and the irresistible urge to dominate. Those who didn't bend to new forms of power were obliterated. Yet, not all humans were lost. In the midst of the madness, some began to see the true scope of their abilities. A select few tried to lead, not through force, but by understanding. They realized that their newfound powers could be used to elevate humanity, not destroy it. These humans, scientists, philosophers, and even former world leaders, sought to find a balance between their gifts and their humanity. They believed that this transformation, if harnessed correctly, could lead humanity into a new era, one where their power could be used for creation rather than destruction. But these individuals were few and far between. The majority of the population, still intoxicated by their newfound powers, were more interested in what they could take than what they could give. The sudden surge in human ambition created a vacuum, and into it rushed greed, arrogance, and a desperate need for dominance. A wave of violence swept through the planet, with entire cities razed to the ground by those who wished to impose their will on others. The alien delegate, observing this descent into chaos, found themselves torn. They had initially come to Earth expecting to find a species to control, one they could guide to safety before the madness spread further. Yet, what they had discovered was far more complex. In their madness, humanity had revealed an unpredictable brilliance. Despite the destruction and turmoil, the alien delegate couldn't shake the feeling that this species, for all its flaws, was somehow destined for something greater. The aliens' mission, once clear-cut, had now become a moral quandary. Should they intervene directly and attempt to quash humanity's rise, ensuring peace through control and suppression? Or should they allow humanity to continue its chaotic evolution with the hope that, eventually, it would learn to harness its powers and become a force for good in the universe? The question was no longer about what could be done to control humanity. It was about whether humanity could ever be guided without destroying itself in the process. The political and social landscape of Earth was rapidly deteriorating. People no longer trusted their governments, their neighbors, or even their families. The ability to manipulate reality itself had made every human an island, each with their own desires, their own goals. Even those who wished for peace had to contend with the overwhelming temptation to use their powers for their own gain. The world was on the brink of collapse, but the alien delegate had seen this before in other species. Societies that had fallen into self-destruction after gaining too much power too quickly. Would humanity repeat history, or could they transcend it? As the situation worsened, the alien delegate was forced to make a choice. Contact with the Galactic Federation was becoming more urgent, as the consequences of humanity's madness were starting to spill out into the cosmos. The balance of power in the galaxy was delicate, and the potential for humanity to upset that balance could not be ignored. If humans continued on this path of destruction, there was a very real possibility that the conflict would spill beyond Earth, affecting the entire galaxy. The delegate called for an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. What began as a simple observation mission had turned into a crisis of galactic proportions. Alien species, once indifferent to humanity's existence, now looked on with suspicion and fear. The idea of a species that could warp reality with sheer willpower, that could bend space and time to their desires, was unsettling. Even the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had not reached this level of power without centuries, if not millennia, of careful evolution. But humans had achieved it in the span of a few years. No, in a matter of months. The fear was palpable. The question on the table was no longer whether humanity could be contained, but whether they could be trusted. Was it possible to guide such a volatile species into galactic cooperation? Or would humanity become the galaxy's greatest threat, an uncontrollable force of nature that could consume everything in its path? The stakes were higher than ever, and the alien delegate had only one certainty. The time for indecision was over. The humans had changed, whether for better or for worse. The future of the galaxy now depended on what happened next. The galaxy had begun to stir in response to the growing human threat. The alien delegate, once an observer, now found themselves at the center of a galactic debate, one that had far-reaching consequences. The council was divided. Some species called for immediate action, extermination of humanity before they could reach further into the stars. Others proposed containment, a strategy to neutralize Earth's newfound powers while ensuring humanity did not spread their chaos beyond their home planet. But there were those who saw a more radical path. They believed that humanity, despite its madness, held potential that could transform the galaxy in ways no one could yet predict. The debate raged on for weeks. The humans, oblivious to the deliberations happening light years away, were too consumed by their own turmoil to notice the gravity of the situation. Their evolution into beings of immense power had already fractured their world beyond repair. The old political systems were gone, replaced by violent factions that struggled for dominance, each claiming the right to lead in a world without rules. The most powerful were feared as gods, while the rest of the population was left scrambling for survival in a society increasingly defined by chaos. Yet in the midst of this, some humans had begun to recognize the profound responsibility that came with their abilities. A small but determined group, scientists, philosophers, and former leaders, sought to regain control, to rebuild a semblance of order, and to confront the madness that had taken hold. They understood that their power, if left unchecked, would lead to nothing but destruction, but they also saw that they could use it to restore balance and perhaps bring about a new era of peace. However, their efforts were hindered by those who had descended into tyranny, bent on reshaping the world in their image. Meanwhile, the alien delegate stood at a precipice, faced with the immense weight of their responsibility. The decision had been made. They would intervene. But how? The Council's decision was clear. Humanity was too dangerous to be left unchecked, but they were also too valuable to be destroyed outright. A middle path would have to be forged, one that would attempt to steer humanity back from the brink without stifling their potential. The delegate's first step was to reach out to the humans who had shown restraint and intelligence in the midst of their chaos. These individuals, though rare, held the key to humanity's future. The alien delegate sent them a message, encrypted and subtle, but powerful in its intent. You have the power to shape the future. You must choose. Will you guide your people to greatness, or will you allow your madness to consume you all? But the message was not enough. Humanity, in its fractured state, was not so easily swayed. The response came not from the few wise souls who understood the message, but from the power-hungry leaders who had risen to prominence through fear and manipulation. They saw the alien delegate's intervention as a threat, an attempt to control them, to limit the power they had only just begun to understand. For these individuals, the invitation to collaborate was an affront. Humanity, they argued, was the future of the galaxy, not its subjugated child. They would not be guided by the hands of alien overseers. Thus, the conflict escalated. As factions within humanity battled for supremacy, the alien delegate knew that time was running out. The choice was no longer about whether humanity could be trusted. It was about whether they could be contained before their power led to a galactic war. If humanity continued on its present course, the madness that had overtaken their species would not only doom Earth, but would spread to other planets, provoking intervention from every corner of the galaxy. And once those civilizations were drawn into conflict with humanity, there would be no telling where the spiral would end. The delegate understood the gravity of their next move. The time for subtlety was over. They needed to confront humanity head-on, and this would require more than just diplomacy. It was time to force a reckoning. In the days that followed, the alien delegate initiated a direct confrontation, one that would test humanity's limits. They summoned a meeting, broadcast across all of Earth, not with a message of peace or caution, but with an ultimatum. Your species stands at the crossroads of its evolution. You will choose whether to rise as a force for creation or fall as a force of destruction. The galaxy has watched you, and now you will answer for what you have become. The message sent shockwaves through the planet. It wasn't just a warning, it was a challenge. The delegate had thrown down the gauntlet, forcing humanity to make a choice that would define its future. For the first time since the event that triggered their madness, humanity was confronted with the full weight of their actions, and the alien delegate's presence underscored the enormity of what was at stake. For some, the message was a wake-up call. They recognized that they had gone too far, that the pursuit of power at any cost had led them to the brink of annihilation. These humans rallied together, forging alliances to rebuild the broken world, to bring about a new age of reason. They worked to undo the damage, not just on Earth, but to the broader cosmic order that humanity had threatened with its erratic behavior. For others, however, the message was not one of redemption, but of challenge. The most power-hungry factions saw the alien intervention as a call to arms. They rallied their forces, preparing for war. They believed that humanity, with its newly unlocked potential, had the power to dominate the galaxy, and the alien delegate's ultimatum was only the first step in what would become an all-out conflict. If the aliens would not bend to their will, then humanity would make them. The alien delegate watched as the galaxy's future hung in the balance. The final choice was now clear. Humanity had reached a crossroads. It was no longer a question of whether they could evolve. It was a question of whether they could survive their own evolution. The delegate could no longer sit idly by. The galaxy would either accept humanity as an uncontrollable force of nature, or it would crush them before they could do irreversible harm. The delegate had one final decision to make. Would they try to stop humanity, or would they take a step back and allow them to choose their own destiny? The galaxy had never faced such a moment. The decision to intervene or withdraw would shape the future of the universe itself. Would humanity rise to become a force of unparalleled greatness? Or would they fall into a madness that would destroy them and everything around them? The delegate's thoughts were interrupted by a singular realization. The answer, for better or worse, was no longer theirs to decide. The madness of humanity had already begun to spread across the galaxy. And so, the real test began, not of humanity's potential, but of whether they could be trusted with that power at all.